So today, Shop Talk Live is all about Australia. So let's start off by bringing Brett Barkley in to the program straight away.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome, Brett. Now, let me just introduce you, Brett, and then I'll explain what we're going to do today. So you're NAC's relationship partner for Australia and New Zealand. You're Convenience Measures Australia Director, very successful business. You're also a non-executive director with the Australasian Association of Convenience Stores. So it makes sense to shake things up a bit today. We felt, Brett, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I'm going to be with you, but you're very much going to be doing the driving for today's episode of Shop Talk Live. It is in Australia after all. Tell us what's in store for us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and appreciate the opportunity. I know we did, I think it was episode 23 with you, and it was great to have Angus Mackay from 7-Eleven and Hayden Tierney from Bowser Bean. And that was, from all reports, we had some great feedback on that. So today we thought, we recently had our ACCS Supplier and Retailer of the Year awards, and we've got two stores today that were the two winners of independent and corporate, and obviously the corporate won the overall as well. So, and they're going to be the entrant for the best of the best at the Europe Summit next month. So we thought it was a great opportunity to showcase and talk to both Sky and Holly and talk about the stores and what they're doing and how successful they've been in terms of changing up. And they're very, very different formats. And it's great to see what's sort of going on in the Australian market at the moment. We're seeing a lot of investment back in. We've got strong growth at the moment, and we did the back end of last year. So we've really recovered from the pandemic well.
So I get to ask exciting questions now because I'm taking a bit more of that role in this program. Let me start with one I think you're going to like, Brett, which is, do you really feel that Australia has raised the bar in terms of, being global best practice in the last couple of years? Because we really feel that you guys have turned it up a notch.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, being fortunate enough, and I've spent a lot of time through Europe and the US, and we've learned a lot. And I think doing those study tours over a number of years, I think retailers felt the need to improve, and we've certainly migrated away from what was pretty much a fuel-driven business and walked away from relying on foot traffic through fuel. And we've become, talk about roadside retail. I think retailers are very much aware of some of the challenges that we faced. And, during the pandemic, we felt that, if we had have relied solely on fuel, we would have really struggled as a channel. But because we've really developed the offer and many variants of the offer as well around food and coffee, we've benefited from that. And, a lot of that has been investment over a number of years, but it's really come to the fore. And as customers, and I'll talk about it today, but as customers have remained in that local phase and shopping local, I think we've continued to benefit from that. So I still feel as though, there's a couple of markets, Ireland and Philadelphia, I still love and still think we've got a bit to catch them, but certainly we're coming at a rapid rate.
Well, modesty is also a good quality, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So, mate, thanks for the opportunity. And what I wanted to do first is just to give an overview of the Australian market. I think, one of my roles as director of CMA, I write the State of Industry report, and I felt it's really important to give a view on how we're performing, because I think, as you said, Dan, we've really come a long way in recent years in terms of our performance. And so I'll give you a bit of an overview. And then I wanted to touch on the COVID impacts. And as a CMA, we did a study for ACCS, and I really thank Theo, as the CEO of ACCS, for the opportunity to present this on behalf of ACCS today. But what I wanted to do is touch on the numbers first. So basically, before I start on the numbers, I wanted to talk about fuel. And I sort of mentioned it at the start, but if we were relying on fuel, we would have really struggled. And the reason I say this is because go back 10 years, and it's great looking at the last decade, but we were reliant on 50% of our customers were fuel only. And that's now below 40% in 2020. So in 10 years' time. And the main reason I say we would have really struggled is because you have a look at the numbers there. Fuel was down 14% last year based on, COVID lockdowns in Melbourne. We had a 100-day lockdown. So we were down 40%. At the peak of COVID, we were down 60%. So we finished 14% down, but yet we finished 5% up on shop sales. And that's a real indication of how far and how mature the market's become and how successful we've been in that shop format. And then just the fuel headlines, you can see there that being 14% down is a $3.5 billion hit. But it was a bit of a double-edged sword for us because the average price was also down just under 14% as well. And, you know, in April last year, we had prices that we hadn't seen since 2005, you know, under $1 a litre. So it was pretty significant, the impact. But what we did see is customers, you know, the positive is we're starting to get more litres per transaction, which is great. In terms of shop, as I mentioned, 5.1% now. You know, we were 2.1% up in 2019, but to grow 5.1, when at the end of April in 2020, we were down as a channel. We were really struggling. We had bushfires at the start in January, February, which really impacted the market. We achieved $9 billion in sales for the first time, so 9.22 to be exact. You know, and again, it's a great chart for us. You know, we should basically by end of 2022, hopefully be a $10 billion market. And our margin was a little bit down, mainly due to tobacco. Tobacco as a margin is lower versus the overall channel, but you know that category really jumped up last year as customers sort of used convenience as a destination for that category. So it was a little bit down, but still solid. In terms of the key categories, merchandise transactions was down, so you can see that people were shopping less. So you know, this is just purely merchandise, but we were down 7.5%, so 460 per day per site. Transaction value, though, was up. We've just run our latest study, which is only just finished in field, and we know that transaction value has stayed up, which is great. So we're still seeing that transaction value increase. But we did have that, and I talked about the merchandise transactions. The shoppers are visiting only 2.4 times a week, which was down from 2.8, which what we'd actually seen is over the last 4 years in particular, we'd seen a growth in shopper visits per week, but that got impacted last year, and we know that's maintained. So we still haven't got the traffic back, but transaction value stayed up. So it's still there's still an opportunity for us, even though we're doing well. People are certainly not visiting as often as what they were prior to 2019. In terms of tobacco was the key headline for us. It was 9.6% in growth. $326 million it added to the channel. Packaged beverages, which was an interesting one because packaged beverages, a lot of it was driven through health, like kombucha, water, diet soft drinks, but everything reverted back to energy drinks and Polish full sugar cola, which are two of the key categories in this channel, and that added another 77 million. Food service, as I mentioned, now that's just under $900 million for us. 10 years ago, that was under 300 million. So it's really jumped up in terms of the growth, and another 70. It's been consistent for the last 5 years, growing at around that 10% mark.
Brett, on that point, just I think a lot of people around the world who are not based in Australia would be interested to see the strength in food service, because obviously a lot of questions in markets, particularly in urban markets, around whether food service will bounce back post pandemic, but interesting to see those numbers.
And it's continued into 2021, and so it hasn't dropped back. In fact, we're really getting good growth, and I'll show it in the COVID study a little bit later. But we're really targeting QSRs and getting really good growth out of that category, which has been maintained in the first quarter of this year, which is great. So we've got credibility in food now, and you'll see the variation of offers in the marketplace. Some are packaged, so it's just get out, and then others have got kitchens which will service. So we've got a variation of the offer in the marketplace. And then the last category was grocery. I mean, grocery had been flat to 1% growth for many years, a lot of range rationalisation, and obviously that had a real impact in 2020 in terms of growth in categories that we hadn't really seen, like cleaning, traditional grocery items that had really dwindled over the years. So it was great to see, and again has maintained, which I spoke to the other day, Dan, about and I don't know that we'll ever go back to what we knew as normal, to be honest, because behaviour's changed, and even having a quick look at the numbers from our recent field work that we've just done, there's a lot of things that still haven't changed from what we saw last year, which is great from a channel perspective. And if we can get the foot traffic back up to where it was, then I think we'll benefit from it.
Very good.
Yeah, in terms of categories, so we saw non-food, which is where tobacco and the like sit in, is 5 billion. And that was up 5.6%. As you can see from the 2019 number, that was actually down 1%. So it was a real turnaround for non-food as a total. And food and beverage continues to grow. It was 6% in 2019, 4.5% in 2020. So a little bit softer, but there was a couple of categories that really took effect, like even in confectionery, people weren't out and about. So gum and mint really suffered as a category, but confectionery actually ended the year in positive. So it took a while to rebound, but once people started to get out and about again, we saw some of these categories pick up really in the back half of the year, which is what gave us the momentum. And as I said, in the first quarter of this year, we've seen that momentum continue. In terms of so that's basically the data. What I wanted to do was just talk about COVID and the impact it had. So we've actually run 3 studies for ACCS. One was in March during the peak of COVID, May as sort of things started to open up just before Victoria went into lockdown again, and we ran it 12 months later in March this year, just to see the impacts. And it's really, really interesting because, as I said, I don't know that things are going to go back to what we knew. And I think things are going to stay. And one of the drivers is that, there's 47% of supermarket shoppers are using convenience stores instead of supermarkets. And that can be for things like top-up shops and the like. Why are they doing it? Mainly coming back for fuel, which is great, but they're using associated purchases with that fuel. So where we saw fuel only as one of those missions, people are coming back. The speed, 39% identified the speed to be able to get in and out quickly, and 30% of people are still avoiding crowds. So even though we've opened up, our AFL here, we had, as I think I mentioned to you, Dan, we had just under 80,000 AFL. People are happy to go to the footy, but when it comes to getting on public transport or going back to the office or going to the supermarket, they're still trying to avoid crowds, which is quite interesting.
Brett, on that point, really interesting, I think, the avoiding crowds point, because I guess, this may be one of the sticky things that stays, mightn't it? I mean, we might get out of lockdown just as you have in Australia, but avoiding crowds still becomes a key issue for people long term. And obviously that some of the time they're back in the office, some of the time they're working from home, but they always will, many people will still try to avoid in crowds with some, particularly in countries like the UK and otherwise where we'll have low levels of endemic infection for COVID, as a consideration.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one because people are still skeptical, and we're coming into winter, and we've had a couple of minor cases here where there've been small lockdowns for a period of time, but generally people are pretty comfortable. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to travel to Sydney and Brisbane recently. I'm based in Melbourne, but so I'm still seeing people getting out and about. But you're right. I think things like I think people have realised that convenience is actually quite a great alternative for that. And as you say, there's not the hustle and bustle of a supermarket that you can get in and out, as I said, really quickly, park at the front of the store and get out. So yeah, I think it's one of those ones that you might rebound at some point, but it's certainly going to stick around for a bit longer. And then, I talked about grocery categories, and this just highlights, the May 20, sort of March 20 period where we saw people were continuing to buy groceries. And so it was really, these were the categories that we sort of hadn't seen the growth that had come out in the grocery categories. And that's what really drove that grocery result last year. And it's continued, as I said, into 2021, which is great. In terms of the next slide, sorry. This is just highlighting as well. It's the whole impulse versus planned elements. So what we saw was, so people were still, while they were coming in as well, what we were seeing was the benefit of, snacks and cold beverages. Now, they're traditionally impulsive, but as people were in convenience stores, they were buying these items as an impulse. But also on the flip side of that, this is where we're seeing that growth in food service and cigarettes in particular, where customers were coming in on a planned mission as well. So they're planning to come to convenience. So again, that was that whole coming to the store, avoiding crowds. And we saw a big swing towards convenience stores in those two categories. Then when we talk about what's new normal, 1 in 4 shoppers are now using convenience stores more than the same time last year. And obviously things have dropped off. So To now compare that to May to March this year, you can see that petrol and convenience is one of those categories, but it's not only petrol and convenience. And you can see people are going to their local greengrocer, pharmacy, butcher, fresh food, and I point out the local element because that's more than doubled. And I think we're benefiting from that convenience. And even when you hear about the two major supermarkets, Woolworths have a little bit more of a local focus and Coles have a little bit more of a shopping centre focus, and Woolworths tended to perform better. That has reversed a little bit in the last read, but in 2020, Woolworths seemed to be a little bit better because they had a little bit more of a suburban mix of stores. So I think that's, and Metcash with their IGA as well benefited from that as well. So I think we've certainly been part of that. And, we saw people coming from less than a kilometre quite regularly. The other thing I suppose we saw, and we sort of benefited from it as well, was the use of online shopping. And that's not just in Australia, it's globally, but, certainly millennials are more likely to be driving this number. And I think that's something that, I spoke about. We can't just count physical shop visits now. You've actually got to look at the visit via the delivery method as well as someone coming in. So, and again, that local shop continues. So we saw that from, that March 21 result versus the May 20. Certainly we're seeing that significant shift, and it's maintained. And that's why I think what we're seeing right now in convenience is we're benefiting from that local shop, and that's continuing.
Very good.
The other thing, and I've highlighted this, we've done 3 reads on this, and it's great to continue to see this result, is that convenience shoppers trust and convenience stores more so than anywhere else. And I think, again, talk about the crowds and that element, but we were really quick in getting screens in, putting sanitizing stations in and the like, mask wearing where it was required within, like Melbourne when it was required and the like. And we've seen that 3 reads now where they trust convenience, and that's where we're winning. So I think, for me, we've got to maintain those standards, and we talked about it's got to become part of the normal what we do in stores, and the retailers I certainly think are adhering to that. So for me, there was 2 sides here. One was the shopping trends. People out and about again, so they're certainly shopping in different places, which is great. So that's sort of normal. We certainly haven't seen the CBD get back. Local shopping's continued as a trend. When does a trend become normal? And probably it's starting to become a little bit more normal now. And then online shopping, we've maintained that growth, and it's maintained this year. And I'm sure Sky can touch on that from a technology perspective a little bit later, but certainly targeting at younger shoppers. And then for me, the positive for convenience is we're well rated, and that's top-up shopping, which wasn't part of the normal shopping behaviour previous to COVID. There's trust in the channel, which is great. And we're being strongly recognised as an option for food on the go, and we're competing very strongly against QSRs and cafes. And that's something that hasn't happened overnight. That was a lot of investment over a lot of years, but we've certainly benefited.
Oh, very impressive, Brett. Now, I guess you've shown us some of the evidence for the broad trends in terms of the consumers' voter confidence in the convenience sector in Australia. I think what's exciting about what's coming up next is some examples of how you guys are turning up the dial quite a bit in store formats.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to have 2 very different offers in here. And I suppose for me, what I look at is there's a model that can be replicated, which often the major retailers focus on, and then you've got independents that can, as Holly will put it, throw out the rule book, which is great. So, you've just got to test things. And I think that's really critical. You can't just keep doing the norm, and you got to keep on looking at different things. And the major retailers do that as well. They have success, and you've got to trial things, and things don't work and things do work. And I think that's what's been the success of the Australian business.
Very good.
So what I wanted to do was welcome Holly first from, Holly's the site operator at Fox's Pantry, BP Tugun, in a lovely part of the world up at the Gold Coast there. I was up there on the weekend, fortunately. It was 24, 25 degrees. I think it's about 10 degrees in Melbourne at the moment, so it's nice to get up there, heading into winter. But what I wanted to talk to Holly about today was, she'll go through a short presentation, but, I know, Holly, you were pretty open about it. You were looking at it. I know Richard, your dad, quite well as well. You're looking at the site, should we stay open? I mean, that's a big decision. And, I suppose you had to look at different ways to operate. You had a very competitive area. The Gold Coast is quite interesting with the type of clientele up there, very different. So, but we love them. We love all Australians. But what you've done is moved away from traditional convenience items, and I think that's a credit to taking that risk. And now, as I said, I think you now have a very much a cult following at your store, and it'd be great to hear from you how that's worked. And I suppose for anyone overseas and in the global market to see, well, as an independent operator, how can I benefit from what I'm about to learn from tonight? So welcome to you, Holly.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, definitely. And as you say, like, obviously we did look at closing because we had no other option. With the airports closing that are 5 minutes down the road, we obviously did lose a lot of customers from that. 4 years ago when we renovated, we wanted to rebrand and, showcase what we had to offer. So when we got really quiet, we rebranded to the Fox's Pantry, and it just, it took off from there. So it was really great. But obviously it has changed over the last year or so. But that's what's so exciting. It just changes every day. Yeah, and I think with your presentation, I know the first page there has your forecourt. It's not a big forecourt. So no, we get a few complaints about that one. Yeah. It's sort of on a corner, isn't it? And so you only sort of got one way, or I know you got a couple of entrances, but it wasn't big. So you had to really look at the store, didn't you? Yeah, so we're on the Gold Coast Highway. So if you're driving past quickly, you're going to miss it. So when we rebranded, we really looked at the people going north. So if they see the front of the store, they sort of, especially the locals, we had a lot of comments where they'd lived in Tugun for, 20 odd years and they'd never been in the service station. So when they saw a rebrand, when they saw a different signage out the front, they're like, oh, I'll just pop in and have a look. And obviously, yes, word of mouth as well. But yeah, they're just blown away with what we had to offer, which was great. Yeah. So in terms of the presentation, I'll let you just run through and talk about, what you've done in the store. So go for it. Yep. So with our, pretty much with the normal traditional service station offering, we've really cut it back. So as you can see, the drinks fridge there, that's a 7-door fridge. We've now cut the traditional drinks down to 3 doors, and the rest is all alternative kombuchas, all local brews, and then you've got your water and milk as well. With the confectionery, pretty much the bottom line there is traditional chocolates, and the rest is all organic or a natural approach, I guess, to confectionery. So it's not much you'll see elsewhere in other service stations. And I suppose the big question about that, Holly, how did you approach it with suppliers? Because obviously suppliers are used to walking into a BP as you were branded and seeing an expected range. How did you deal with that? I think they sort of knew, and back to that rule book, I think they knew that I was on the edge, I just wanted to do something different. So I think they were more welcoming to our vision sort of thing. So we got out of the BP buying group last month, just because it wasn't working for us. We were offering something completely different. So the suppliers have sort of been like, okay, that's okay. That's traditional suppliers. But then, looking at our new local suppliers, they've really helped us grow in this space. Very good. Keep going, you go for it. We're going to the next slide, yeah. Yeah, so the coffee and food, when we reopened, the big thing for my dad actually was he wanted to eat the food that he sold. So, it was always traditional pies and sausage rolls, packaged sandwiches. So everything is made on site, made from local ingredients. And anything that's not made on site is sourced locally from all local suppliers. So here you've got obviously the pizzas. They're, our number one seller. The supplier was small at the start of COVID. They had to close for a little bit. They couldn't keep up with the supply because it was that crazy. And then, we've recently incorporated local sourdough. So, people were going to the markets for their sourdough. They're now coming to us. We don't sell traditional bakery bread anymore, just because our area wants sourdough bread instead. And you can actually see the food being made behind the counter. So our kitchen's not very big, and we're just in the middle of renovations at the moment.
And one of the things for me, Ollie, is $18.95 for a pizza in convenience is a lot for what was probably in the freezer before, and just a frozen pizza. And that obviously has worked well for you as well.
Yeah, and that's actually a price increase. So it was a little bit cheaper, but people didn't even question the price increase. Again, a lot of our customers are really focused on the product, the ingredients that are inside the product. So very health conscious families in our area. So a lot of, and with my product range as well, it's all carefully investigated before I put it on the shelves. But that's just, you know, I'm just listening to our customers and what they want. And, you know, they want less preservatives in their food. They want a natural option for their family.
Holly, could I ask a question? How much do you think your success has been down to changes because of the pandemic, and how much has been down to, you know, the opportunity that perhaps has been there increasingly over the last few years anyway for a location like yours?
Yeah, well, we sort of, you know, 4 years ago when we renovated, it sort of just grew gradually. I think when we rebranded, it was like, okay, so no one wants to go to the supermarket anymore. So why don't we just make this the one-stop shop? Like, obviously I've learned from the best in M&S over in the UK. Like, I used to do my grocery shopping after work there, just because it was so convenient. So it's more just finding products, alternative products to normal supermarkets, and making it easier for our customers so they don't have to go elsewhere.
Makes sense.
So we'll just go to the next slide. Oh, we'll just, yeah, on this one. So this is actually quite surprising, this one. So these, in the frozen section there, we've got the bone broth, just the slide before. So this is a lovely lady in Melbourne. I didn't know much about her until a customer came in and said, you need to get this broth in. So we've been selling bone broth for about 4 years now. So it's been on the shelves, everyone loves it. But this one is the smallest batch she still makes it from each batch, tastes each batch. Obviously you can see the price there, there's only a couple of serves in those, but they have taken off. We've just ordered 100 units of one flavor. So you can just imagine, I don't know where I'm going to put it, but we're going to find space for it. But yeah, in the freezer space now, it's really a unique offering where you won't find these products anywhere else. So it's quite exciting. And I think it keeps our customers excited as well. I always get comments saying every time I walk in, there's something different. And I'm like, yeah, I know, we're running out of space now. And yeah, especially with the signage. So it was really hard because we kept changing everything all the time. We wanted to be like a supermarket, but with a completely different product range. So yeah, signage, we just didn't want to be normal saying, you know, cereal or, you know, whatnot. But yeah, so it was more just sectioning out everything so customers could find all their products that they needed. Just the next one.
You went a bit different with some of the signs. Was that sort of to tie in like the treat yourself?
Yeah, I think it was just to be a bit more, because a lot of our sandwich names are a bit different as well. Like You're Baking Me Crazy for the bacon and egg. So it's sort of just like that vibe in there. It's, you know, a bit laid back, a bit funny. Yeah, didn't want it to be a bit boring. So yeah, we just thought we'd go with that one. But yeah, so
I have to say it's really impressive, Holly. You know, it really, I think what you've done is just really impressive.
Yeah, and it definitely hasn't happened overnight, but as I say, like the customers that we've got, you know, it is a lot of time spent out in the store just talking to them, and actually just asking them what they want. Like most of this section here in the treat yourself section is all from the local area. So we've got a local author, all the bath salts are from Currumbin, which is around the corner, a local naturopath. Yeah, so it's quite exciting. And I think, you know, dealing with small suppliers as well, it does make it more interesting. You know, it definitely makes their day when we support them.
And the key thing is, Holly, is I suppose the next slide, the results. I mean, that's what everyone looks at the end of the day. You can make a store look pretty and not sell anything, but I suppose for you, the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, like I know I spoke to you, Brett, earlier. This is Dad's sort of area. He looks at all the figures and whatnot. But yeah, it was a real eye-opener when obviously I've seen your presentations where tobacco is such a big component to everyone's stores. For us, we could really get rid of it now. It is such a low percentage in our store. people, and it's not even to do with pricing or anything. People just don't expect to come into our service station anymore, and we've got such a health food offering. They just don't expect it there. But yeah, it's really, even with the airport closed, we did rely, the food really came out on top. So it was quite exciting to see. But yeah, there's always room for improvement, and we're going to keep changing and obviously offering different things. As I said before, we're in the middle of a new kitchen. So once that's opening, I'm very excited to what we can play with there.
So do you feel, sorry, just one more question from me. Do you feel as though, obviously you make the food, so you've got to work on, labour costs, which we know Australia's got very high labour costs compared to most other markets. How do you manage that in terms of those labour costs? And obviously opening a kitchen is going to put a bit more pressure on it.
Yeah, and I think with opening the kitchen, I think it'll be less labour intensive, because with the space that we've got, it's really hard to explain, but we've got more people on now to support in that small area. So if we have one person out the back, it might be a lot less labour intensive. I know it's a tricky one, but yeah, so for us, I'm sort of going off the topic here. Sorry. Repeat the question, actually, because I've just gone off topic. Sorry.
It's about the labour costs and how you're going to manage that. Because obviously having the kitchen and probably doing more food, do you feel as though you can get your food to so I suppose a sustainable level that you can offset those extra labour costs of continuing to manufacture the food on site?
Yeah, like this, especially in the last couple of months, we've really sat down and looked at the costs involved with making the sandwich. We've redone all that. We've made sure it's still affordable for the customer as well. So we're gradually making sure that we are looking at all our costs in store, our margins in store. So we don't want to lose any staff. That's what I'm trying to say. So we want to continue to grow, continue to make great food. And yeah, keep growing.
I guess, your feel is that you're giving customers what they want locally, Holly. I mean, yeah,
definitely.
You definitely give that impression. I mean, it looks like you're enjoying success to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. And, I'm working alongside my family. So it's, it's hard at times, but we're really enjoying it. And yeah, we've really benefited from being in the local community with all our little customers.
Well, I mean, two Australia Shop Talk Lives, Brett, and in both cases, independent retailers that are kind of knocking it out of the park, I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many stories like that, which is great, and different offers, which is, it's so pleasing to see. And even in the numbers, when you looked at it, the independent market really had a great year last year. And I think, that gives us confidence and then confidence to continue to reinvest as well.
Very impressive.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Holly. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, pleasure. No worries at all.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you. So, and congratulations again on Independent Store of the Year. And now I'll move across to Sky. So Sky is the General Manager of Merchandise at Ampol. And they've recently, so Sky's going to run through, and this was Corporate Store of the Year and Overall Store of the Year for us in Australia. And again, Holly sort of touched on the BP/M&S offer, and, I'm sure that the Ampol team had been overseas and with the Woolworths team and had a look and how can we replicate that in this market. And pleased to say that obviously it's been successful, winning Store of the Year. So Sky, I'll pass on to you just to introduce yourself first.
Yes, thank you for having me. Super excited. The team were obviously really honoured to receive the awards at ACCS, and still riding that high, very, very much so. I have been working with Ampol now for almost 15 years, so have a really good background in format development. I was heavily involved in the foodery concepts in the early days as well. Spent a fair bit of time operationally bringing those to life and rolling more of them out and really focusing on the profitability, because you're 100% correct. You win or lose in the Australian market with your labour cost and being able to execute your offer efficiently. So, yeah.
That's great. So for me, how did how did you make the decision to part? So Woolworths, for those in the international market, Woolworths are the #1 supermarket retailer here in Australia, and had actually been successful in introducing Metro as a standalone for them. So how did it come about? How did the Ampol Metro thing come about, considering that's, you know, essentially in some way a competitor?
Yeah, they were at the time as well, with their own retail network. But they had actually been a long partner of ours from a fuel relationship, and Ampol is the largest fuel retailer in Australia. So part of our, I guess, partnership when it came time to relook at that, the fuel relationship that we had, you know, there was conversations, and obviously good conversations around, hey, you know, we could probably bring something really unique to life, you know, bringing the Ampol's, you know, experience in really understanding that core convenience customer, but also understanding that, you know, the leverage that we can get from the Woolworths offer, which with a much broader range of products, that meant that we could offer some more range to our customers that would open up more sort of shopper missions for our customers.
No, that's great. So I'll get you to start your presentation, and I'll go for it.
Yeah, so I guess the aim of the partnership and you know, bringing together, you know, two iconic brands in Australia, that being, you know, Australia's own Ampol being the largest fuel retailer in Australia, and Woolworths, the fresh food people, you know, that operate the largest supermarket chain, was really around coming together, bringing the boast of what each organisation has to offer to really redefine the convenience offer, you know, on scale within the Australian market. But in saying that, through the process, you know, we've been 100% focused on, you know, keeping the customer at the heart of everything that we did, understanding that, you know, this new concept was not going to be an Ampol store, and it wasn't going to be a Metro store, and we really needed to find a way to, you know, bring the best of both together. And so we really focused on, you know, what are our core customer missions, and we didn't want to lose sight of our history, right? So for us to walk away from what we do really well in a convenience aspect and lose sales there, whilst trying to bring in incremental that then has to grow even more significantly to make up what you're losing in your core business. We were really focused on how do we maintain what we already have and grow through this incrementality. And then the most, I guess, pleasing thing from that was really we also grew those core convenience categories. So that was a nice byproduct that I guess we hadn't expected, but purely obviously driven off, you know, such increases in customer counts. The process for development of this store was a co-creation between the Ampol business and with the Woolworths business, you know, taking obviously the best of both organisations' resources and knowledge, and really using sort of lean design principles when we came together to develop this format. So an example of which, you know, rapidly testing different versions of, you know, formats by mocking them out with tape on the ground and actually trying to walk through and understand how that would look for the customer. So a lot of work to try and, you know, really get that format right. And also being really focused on, you know, bringing those customer missions and making sure that we're putting our layouts based on that. So if I think about, you know, what does that mean? You've got the customer who is a food for now customer who wants to get in, grab that sandwich, grab a drink, you know, get in and out. And so making sure that we're locating those products at the front of the store for that sort of customer mission. And then for that top-up shop, you know, the grocery items where I'm probably going to take a little bit more time to collect the bits and pieces that I'm after, putting that towards the rear of the shop. I think one of the other key things we've done really differently to other P&C businesses with this concept has been to utilise high bay shelving. And that high bay shelving means that we're really able to punch a lot more range into the store than a traditional P&C, particularly, in that grocery top-up category that has been, a quite incremental range for us. The other thing we're really focused on when we developed this format was really disrupting that customer when they walk through the door. And one of the ways that we did that was by putting a produce stand right at the door, which has an abundance of bananas, and it really has such an impact when you walk through. And I think that was really important to sort of instantly acknowledge to the customer that something was different here, but also having such high quality product, fresh product, smack you in the face as you walk in. It really set the tone about, what you can expect from the rest of the offer. And I think that really helps to get customers to then start to look around and have a look at what other offers you have in the store. The other, I guess, thing.
Sorry, Sky, I was going to ask, Nick,
Sure.
Can you just go back one slide just for the sec? I just wanted to ask you, Dan, I mean, you've come to Australia many, many times. I don't know that you would have, that first photo there on the left, I don't know that you would have seen too many Australian convenience stores look like that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at what you're doing, Sky. I mean, I guess my sort of my feeling would be that if you look at markets like the UK, who've been in these partnership sites in roadside retail for some time, that always felt like a missed opportunity in the Australian market. You're now taking it, and in some ways, I think you're learning from what went before you and leapfrogging some of that and doing something new. With these sites, I love your point about disrupting the customer as they come into the store, and also I think you're going to talk a bit later about how you're catering for fuel only customers as well. So it just kind of feels, and I think the look and feel of the store is just really nicely done. So again, just to the point we were talking about at the start, Brett, about Australia turning it up a notch by a global best practice standard. You really, I think you're really doing well with this site, from what I can see.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have to get you out for a proper look when COVID's over.
Yeah, well, if we get allowed into Australia, we're very keen to come, but it's we're going to have to wait a bit, aren't we?
Yeah,
Talk to ScoMo about that.
But it's down to even Sky, and this is happening in a lot of convenience formats. The lighting is playing such a critical role, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was super important for us, given we had sort of extended the height of our shelving to be significantly higher than standard P&C stores. It's super important to get that lighting right and not have it feel dark and enclosed,
Because it is 2,100 and the standard convenience is around 1,500, so there's a bit of a risk going 600 higher.
Yeah, but sort of super important to be able to get the range in, to be able to give that good sort of top-up shop opportunity for customers. I do think, in our bigger stores, we could potentially deal with a slightly smaller height in shelving, but we have since executed this offer in an 80 square metre store. And so, we are really pushing the boundaries with how much we can fit into small spaces. Kingsford does have, a bit of a luxury of space compared to some of the stores that, we've gone into since and that we're about to go into as well. So.
Very impressive.
So technology has been key, and we're really focused in, from a customer experience perspective, that journey from forecourt to payment. And I think it's really important, to be able to provide multiple, opportunities for customers to be able to transact as quickly as possible for whatever their transaction purpose is. So if I look at self-serve as an example, this is fairly new for us to be able to offer shop and fuel purchases via a self-checkout. This landed instantly well for us because self-checkouts in supermarkets have been around for years, and so the customers are already trained on how to use them. And so we're already seeing 30% of our transactions go through our self-checkouts. And I think that's super important to be able to land the results that we have landed, because the increase in customer counts that we've seen, if we didn't have these, we would be struggling to, adequately service customers quickly in that offer. So that's been a real winner for us. The next one is fuel pay, and some customers just want to get in and out and pay for fuel only, and we want to help facilitate that as much as possible. So we have a fuel pay app which enables customers to be able to pay on the forecourt through an app, and so they don't even have to enter the store. That means they're in and out of the forecourt as quickly as possible, which is fantastic for forecourt congestion, but also means they're not going in store and getting in a crowded store and lining up and taking up space, enabling other customers who do want to shop to not feel as pressured by having a crowd in the store. So that's been a real winner as well. The other big piece for us is the loyalty program. So our partnership with Woolworths means that our customers have access to the Woolworths rewards program, which has 12 million members in Australia. So that's really creating a lot of value for our customers to be able to have access to that. And then in addition to that, the Uber Eats piece, where I would say is the ultimate convenience. You don't even have to come to our store and literally order what you want from our extended range and have it delivered to your home. And that was in particular very popular during COVID lockdowns, where people, whilst they were allowed out to do certain, top-ups and things like that, I think a lot of people, opted as much as possible to stay home. So that's been a really, a really good addition to the offer as well.
And so, Sky, you think the self-serve checkouts was an interesting one, because there was always this you can get in and out quickly benefit, but there was also, do you lose that experience? But you feel as though, obviously with 30% of your transactions going through it, it's obviously been a huge success for you.
Yeah, I think it's personally, like me, I love self-checkouts. So, I like having that control and move through quickly. Other people would prefer to line up and speak to the person. And so I think it just enables, with the vast difference in customers that we get through the door, it's giving everyone an option to transact in the way that is most suitable for them. So if you're a fuel-only customer and you don't have time to come in, pay with the fuel pay. If you just want to pay for your fuel and get a bottle of water, and you don't want to line up, if there's a line for the customer service assistant, then jump on the self-checkout and get yourself in and out quickly. So it's really just providing an option for whatever your purpose is as a customer.
I guess the important thing around this, two important things around this from my point of view, Sky, is obviously that you're offering pay by app for fuel and self-checkout payment for fuel. Secondly, that customers are using it and it's working. I think that's if there are ticks in those two boxes, it's pretty significant, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, really impressive.
And then people. So for us, it's been obviously you can't land an offer like this and have it execute well and get the success that we've had without a really strong team. And our ops team, I think, have done an incredible job of really executing the offer well. We've got really good training and development programs that enable us to really focus on the basics, but also what the incremental offers are and how what is best practice. And we've obviously leveraged our partnership with Woolworths to build training programs around some of the things that are new to us, as an example, the management of fresh produce, to ensure that we're executing that range brilliantly. We've also got a really strong succession program in place, because obviously we are about to land another 20 of these stores. And so we've really been spending the time building a pipeline of people to ensure that, the next stores that we open execute as brilliantly as they do at Kingsford. We also run a lot of sort of staff incentives, and so each month there'll be something different that they can, target and focus on and try and, push a line. So at Easter it was hot cross buns, something that would be, not probably even sold in a lot of P&C stores, but that was something we really heroed and got behind. And the stores then target a result and get rewarded for their achievements. So it just helps to really get that engagement in the offer and the promotion of that offer with customers.
So some interesting numbers there, Sky.
Yeah.
Yes, some pretty good numbers. So sales obviously over 80%, but I think more impressively, the margin post waste, which I think is an important thing to highlight, because in offers where you do extend your fresh so considerably, waste becomes a very key thing to manage. So I think that's probably the key one to focus on and that we're most proud of. Customer set counts, as I sort of talked to before, our transaction counts are up, but more significantly, our shop only customers are up. And so, what we take from that is, our customers and our fuel transactions haven't decreased, but as a percentage of total transactions, they have decreased. And now shop only transactions are a higher proportion than fuel, which is the complete opposite of what our standard business would be. Basket value, obviously impressive 24% increase, and self-checkout usage also really significant now. I think one of the other interesting things with our results is that the change in category mix. So whilst our core categories have all grown, as I mentioned before, and grown in some cases quite significantly, the mix of our store sales has changed considerably. So the number 2 category is now chilled perishables. Traditionally that would have been beverages, but also the gap between the number 1 category and the number 2 category is now low single digits, whereas in the past you would have seen that be double digits easily. So some really positive sort of changes with the customer habits and the change of mix that we're seeing in the store as well.
So for me, Dan, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Brett. And I guess to your point of the number of stores in the pipeline, Sky, it's working and you want to get it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we're super excited to bring more of these stores to the Australian consumer.
So I was just about to say, Dan, for me, I mean, you're seeing 2 great stores, very, very different in their approach, and I think it's great. I mean, hopefully at the summit next month, that the Australians are well represented, obviously. So it'd be great to see an Australian store win at the European Summit. So they're the best of the best for 2020 or 2021, I suppose. We're really proud of what's going on in this channel. I know, sitting on the, and Sky's also a director at ACCS as well. We're just seeing such a change in the momentum in the channel. And, these are the sorts of things that are going on that sort of building that momentum and confidence. And that flows through to the suppliers as well. In terms of their confidence in the channel and investing in the channel more and more. So it's great. We're seeing a win both ways. Well,
23 countries registered to watch this episode, even though it was only a couple of days ago that we first marketed it. So there's a lot of global interest in what's going on in Australia, and you can see why. I think you've 2 programs that both illustrate independents are doing really cool stuff, and the big retailers are really getting it right, and it shows. So good luck, Australia, is all I can say.
Thanks, man. And thank you, Sky. I really appreciate your time. For taking the time out tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great job, and congratulations, Woolworths, and also Fox's Pantry for doing so well at the ACCS Awards. And good luck. All I can say.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Brett, thank you very much for hosting today's show and for putting together such a great combination. It's been fascinating.
No, thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to showcase, what's going on down here. I mean, I've often spoken to Mike and Henry at NAC saying, you need to come down again at some point in time and have a look. I know we're probably not going to open our borders till 2022, but when they do open, we'll welcome everyone with open arms. So.
Well, look, let me just round off the program and tee up the NACS CSE event coming up. Look, thank you, Brett, very much for your contribution. Sky and Holly, terrific presentations today. Your evening in Australia, of course. So delighted you can join us. So last word from me. Just to flag up an exciting new feature we've just published on the Global Convenience Store Focus site. It's an interview with Ishvan Kapitani, Shell's Global Executive Vice President for Mobility, about all the stuff that Shell are doing. Worth taking a look at that. The other thing that's mentioned in that article is NACS Convenience Summit Europe, which will be held virtually next month, 1st to the 3rd of June. And, the presentation that Shell will be doing with Volkswagen will be pretty interesting, looking at the future of vehicles and the fuels that will power them, that Henry Armour, NACS President and CEO, will be hosting. So that's something to look forward to. Obviously, the Best of the Best NACS Award is one of the other things. And, we've got, I'd say, some pretty strong entries, runners from Australia in that award. Of course, there will be others as well. But well done, Australia. Fascinating stuff. And thanks very much for watching. Good afternoon.